Junior Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is the day before Thanksgiving on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, our very special guest will be none other than Atiba. Our conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's good to be here with you.
It's always a pleasure, brother. And John Diggles. John, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. John is a healthcare professional, a healthcare expert, and someone who works in the healthcare space. I'm particularly honored to call him my friend and so grateful that you're on our program. Hey, John. John, are you muted?
Good to see you, Jesse.
It's always a pleasure. And none other than our host and creator is also joining us today on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. She's going to pop in and out. Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the show. Okay, hey.
For you. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you, young Jesse Jackson Jr. Oh,
Hey, I'm so grateful that everyone is joining me for Thanksgiving. Wow, we all made it.
You're
Welcome
funny.
forward to KBLA Talk 1580. We began a conversation yesterday that is particularly important to our conversations with Atiba and John Diggles. And I know that Gina Towns is very well apprised of the issues that we wrote about in yesterday's USA Today. Let me first begin by thanking, somebody's moving the mic around. Let me first begin by thanking USA Today for the wonderful treatment that they gave us yesterday in the newspaper. Someone's mic needs to be still. And the consequences have started a conversation around the country that is extremely important. The idea of a caring economy, the idea that our caregivers at this hour and across Thanksgiving tables, a conversation this year will ensue, we believe, in large measure around the cost of care and the sacrifice that our caregivers give and make to their loved ones, to our society, and in a real sense, the forgotten costs, both financial, emotional, and otherwise, that caregivers who need recognition in this National Caregiver Appreciation Month. We hope that we've started an important conversation, and I'm very grateful for John Diggles and his leadership in helping get that article placed in the USA Today. John, why is this issue so important?
I think it's really, it's one of those things that's almost forgotten. There are a population of people that have made incredible sacrifices. You're talking about 63 million Americans that are making incredible sacrifices to keep a loved one at home. And so much of not only the attention on them, the conversation on them has been forgotten, but also the things that can support them have been under-discussed. And this is critical for us because you're talking about not only 63 million Americans taking this work on, but they're keeping a loved one at home and taking care of them. That saves a lot, just economically saves our healthcare system a lot. Our healthcare system would be crushed without that sort of help. And as bad as healthcare cost is across the United States, it would be even worse if the burden of caring for all of those millions of people that did not have caregivers was on institutional care and on the system. So caregivers are providing an incredible service to America. And Jesse, what you did in that piece is not only recognize their work and their sacrifice, you talked about and laid out a platform, a public policy platform that can support them. And what we see happening online with this piece, the shares, the recognition for other caregivers, the immersing into the conversation of what can be done for them is incredible. You've sparked a significant national conversation on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Diggles. Atiba, your thoughts on caregiving during this holiday season and the importance of it to our national economy?
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, again, and I want to piggyback off of what John just said. Thank you so much for bringing attention to this. And, yesterday I shared your article on my social media, and I really love this part where you said caregiving is woven into American life. It is how we honor our elders, how we keep people with disabilities living in community, and how we hold families together when health falters. Let our gratitude be more than words. Let it be policy that shows the breadth of our thanks. And I'm here in Washington, D.C. I got here yesterday. I'm sitting in my parents' home, and upstairs is my 106-year-old aunt. And so my parents are caregivers. So that brought attention to that. My grandfather passed away in this house because my mother and my father took him in. And my grandmother, my father's mother, lived in this house. So we have our family has been really big about caregiving. And I think really it takes often we don't necessarily know all of the stresses and the things that come about of it because our caregivers do this out of abundance of love. And I know that my aunt is incredibly appreciative. Here's a woman who lived by herself in the Bronx, New York, until she was 102 years old. And so even thinking about what it must be like for a family member to lose their independence and how that comes upon in terms of with the family. So there's so many different pieces, I think, to unwrap in this particular conversation about caregiving. There's so many people that are doing so much for a loved one within their families. And as John emphasized, that there's also this way in terms of taking some of the pressures off of the healthcare system, but there's also the hidden part, the unspoken part of I don't want to say the burden, because it's not necessarily just the burden. It's really just in terms of how we envelop and how we take care of one another within this. So thank you again for what you've done, and thank you for sharing your journey and your family's journey of where you all are too within your own family and your father.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Moving Mountain Wednesdays and Conversations with a T-Bone, KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We want to speak directly to our listeners in Altadena and all across Southern California. Recently, we invited Southern California Edison to join a town hall so fire survivors could ask questions and get clear information about the Altadena Eaton fire and this so-called settlement fund. Weeks before the event, the law firm originally connected to the program withdrew, and we provided SCE updated materials confirming those changes. But despite that, SCE later stated publicly and privately that they were pulling out of the town hall because plaintiffs' attorneys were participating. That was not accurate, and SCE knew that it was not accurate. But when shown documentation that disproved their claim, SCE ignored it and declined to correct the record. At KBLA Talk 1580, trust is not an option. It is the foundation of our work and witness. It is the promise that we make to you. And so we will not move forward with any partnership that misrepresents the facts or undermines the credibility that we have built in love and service to this beloved community. Our commitment remains with the good people of Altadena. We will continue providing independent, verified information to support your recovery without interference from any outside entity, including Southern California Edison, so you don't get burned twice. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Kohl's Black Friday deals are here. Grab your coffee and put on your sneakers because it's go time. Through Saturday, save up to 50% on everything from toys to beauty faves, winter styles, and more. Plus, earn $15 Kohl's Cash for every $50 spent. Yep, that's extra Kohl's Cash. So run, don't walk. Just hold on tight to that coffee. Select styles, some exclusions apply. Coupons and Kohl's Cash do not apply to Sephora. Offers end November 29th. See store or kohls.com for details.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays, not Moving Wednesday Mountains, and Tenacious Thursdays Wednesdays. One of the things associated with caregiving is all of the days run together. Our very special guest on Conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. It's good to be here.
And our very
Got a
special
full house
guest
today.
Yeah, our very special guest, John Diggles, is also here sharing us insights on the need for sharing economy and sharing society. Gina?
Don't pitch it to me after you watch the whole. You said, Jesse, because you have been a caregiver, because you have been in the midst of other people. Can you hear me?
I'm getting an echo.
Can you guys hear me? He said that's okay. See, you know what? We're going to have him take a break. You take a break. I'm going to let you have a 6-minute break.
I'm capable of a 6-minute break. I'll
So
let you do your thing.
It's Moving Mountain Monday, Tenacious Tuesday, Wealthy Wednesdays today. But because we're not on Thursday and Friday live, we are capturing Wednesday, Wealthy Wednesday, Thought-Provoking Thursday, and Fat Meat Friday all together. We'll make that fat meat a turkey.
That's why we have a full house. That's why we're up here.
So guess what, though?
Every
We have
table
a clip for you guys to take a look at. And it is
Former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. is handing out turkeys and food baskets to families who are in need.
Winnie Dorch is live at the Imani Food Pantry with more. Winnie.
Good morning. Well, Jesse Jackson Jr. says feeding the community is a long-standing Jackson family holiday tradition. However, this year feels a little bit different as his father is battling a neurological disorder.
We were fortunate enough to be able to get turkeys in this community and other groceries in this community to provide food for the hungry, which my father requested. Some of the first words coming out of his condition were to find 2,000 churches who would feed 2 million people during the holidays. Dad remembers some things, and he hasn't essentially spoken since, but he did say that.
Today, Jackson Jr. helped a team of volunteers unload a delivery truck with turkeys at the Imani Food Pantry on East 83rd and South Crandon Avenue. Some families are struggling due to rising grocery costs and the effects of the government shutdown, suspending SNAP benefits earlier this month. Jackson Jr. is currently a candidate for the Illinois 2nd Congressional District. As he continues his campaign and helps feed the needy, he is still very much concerned about his sixth father, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. The activist was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2013. In April, his diagnosis elevated to progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. He was just released from Northwestern Memorial Hospital yesterday after 12 days of care. He is now in stable condition. Junior says his dad is strong and has fought back at every stage of his life.
Now in rehabilitation, but lest should we forget, this is a degenerative brain disease, which means there is no recovery from it. It is about his comfort. It is about his care. It is about the army of people that are responsible and volunteering for his care around the clock that we as a family do not have the resources to provide. And in this moment, our family is thinking about other families during Thanksgiving because they have a lot to be thankful for the caregivers who matter at this hour in our nation's history.
And if you were not able to stop by this morning, the food pantry will be open between 4 and 7 o'clock for you to stop by and get that thing.
Caring society, the elevation of caregivers who are normally not part of this conversation.
That was that to me, Jesse?
Yes, sir, it was.
Yeah, I think, look, I think that this is what you raised yesterday, this example that you're setting in bringing this conversation to the forefront is so critical for the country to pick this up and talk about this. We're talking about, significant issues that have hit economically and socially through this. And for you to raise this conversation, and then for you to go into the community and do what you did yesterday, setting the example for what we need to do for each other. You're in a community where there are a lot of caregivers already, and you have a lot of people that are economically displaced because of this. It's very difficult for them after being a caregiver to get back into the workforce. You also address that, which I think is a very under-discussed topic when it comes to caregivers.
Atiba, in the article, we put some numbers associated with it, largely from the AARP. Conservatively, more than $500 billion a year. Liberally, $600 billion a year. That's not even part of the affordable care discussion. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with private insurance or government subsidies towards, again, private insurance. These are people who are not reimbursed, who are completely outside of the scope of the national conversation about healthcare, and yet they're providing a critical and vital service. The economics of it are astounding. Atiba, I think you have your mic muted. For some reason, I think Atiba's mic is muted, and I can't hear Atiba at this moment.
I think when the clip played, I think everything muted automatically. But to come back on this while Atiba comes back on, Jesse, exactly right. The economics are astounding when you look at this. And you have a lot of people that are doing this. It's over $600 billion. And if they are performing their hours, if you had to pay it in wages, I mean, that's an astounding, simple contribution that they're making as caregivers. And for you to raise that is important because, again, that's off of the healthcare system. That is sacrifice that people are doing in service to their families. But that is going to grow because by 2050, 1 in 5 Americans is going to be over the age of 65. This is an area that we must pay attention to now and support the caregivers because the demand is skyrocketing.
The response to the article has been so overwhelming. I've given some reflection to the Civil Rights Act of 2027. And I'd like to bounce this off of Atiba now that he's here. It seems to me that our country, given this large number of people who are about to move through our system because of their age, that we ought to seriously look at the Civil Rights Act of 2027. That is the Assisted Care Living of Equal High Quality Housing and Care Act in 2027. Why do I say that? These people need not only Medicare, they also need Social Security, and some of their Social Security benefits are wanting at this hour. They need supplemental nutrition, at least 3 meals a day. They need housing. Some of them don't have anyone to provide or care for them. And we're looking at a housing boom as a result of assisted care and elderly care alone that could literally be responsible for tens of millions of new jobs in states all across our country if we proactively lay the foundation through a nationally coordinated system of providing assisted living as a civil right in the United States. Your thoughts, Atiba?
Whether it's civil right, human right, just American right, just overall, yes, I think that we definitely need that. I think that we have a 2026 election coming up in terms of midterms. We need a course correct. I don't even want to say recorrect. We need a course correct. Clearly, the country is not moving in a direction that it takes care of its elderly, that it cares much for people with disabilities, that it seems to care much about the young. And all of this, for me, continues to transform into a conversation and a thing that we keep talking about, affordability. that there should not be any American that cannot afford, if they're working and doing the things, whatever, to be productive citizens, where they should not have access to these type of things. We're talking about Medicare, but we're also should be talking about long-term care, where there are so many different pieces that go in terms of as we age. And if people are not making a livable wage, and when I say a livable wage, I'm not talking about the $17.50 an hour that people make here in Washington, D.C., let alone the $5.50 or $6 that they make in the state of Georgia. There's a huge discrepancy around the country in terms of states, but that people can be able to make enough money that they can not only live, but they can also save and prepare for themselves for the future.
You know, Gina, as I think about it, when this very large bubble, and I'm looking at in my mind a graphic of a chart where there's this bubble of Americans, I hate to call them a bubble, but there's an age range that is moving through the system that is progressively getting older. We can see it as a nation. We can actually intercept when they approach retirement age and when they move beyond retirement age to the final stages of their lives. It seems to me that if we constructed high quality assisted living, not facilities, but neighborhoods and facilities, when the bubble finishes moving through the system, Gina, these housing would be available to the millennials and to the next generation of Americans who could take advantage of this investment that would be profitable as well as necessary for the comfort and sustainability of the American people.
Yeah, you're right. I think that this generation, particularly you see the baby boom generation, is the one that is leaving us so quickly, one that, we honor and respect for the way of life which they've taught us. And I'll share this with you. My mom was 95 when she passed in 2021. And she had been living with me for 21 years. When I left Chicago and moved to Atlanta, certainly I took her with me. And so she was quite a help. But at some point, she needed the help. And I will tell you that there is one thing about aging parents, aging relatives. If you are the caregiver, you must have a clear conscience when they go. And that is a mental health issue. Not only do you need counseling and help perhaps during the process and someone sometimes to relieve you, but if you have not done everything that you think that you should do. And in my instance, I ended up quitting my job for the last year of my mother's life. And then COVID came. And so making sure that she had what she needed during COVID, and especially when they become our older relatives become frail and fragile, you have to be there. You have to monitor. You have to be an advocate when they go to the hospital and you bring them home. You have to know their medicine. You have to know the times that they need to eat in order to sustain the medicine. There's so much that's involved with this. So there is the housing, because some of them want to remain independent. And you can move close enough to get to them. But then there are the people who do have their relatives in the home and they're still trying to take care of children. So we do have a lot to think about as a nation.
John Diggles, we have a little less than a minute before we come forward. I do have a quick question I'd like to try and get in on this side of the break, and that is this. A civil right to assisted living of equal high quality that includes all of the basic comforts that we can expect and dignity that our elderly deserve?
Absolutely, 100%. We have got to commit ourselves to that. We cannot be playing politics with these kinds of things that are on the healthcare system, on the economy of the country. There has to be a greater sense of how we treat people in every community, including caregivers in every community, and support this. It's just smart for America to make the investment, because otherwise you're talking about incredible burdens on the healthcare system and parts of the workforce that are significantly lost.
My question to Atiba when we come forward is this. Are we talking about a state right? Some states obviously do it better than other states, particularly the state of Florida might do it better than others, given that it's a retirement community. But the other 49 states may not do it as well as the others either. And therefore, I think we're talking about a federal program. I'd like your take on whether or not we're talking about a civil right from the federal government or a state right and that broken down system. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, Conversations with Atiba.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Amber Payton with BIN News Now. For the first time, a pope is marking an American Thanksgiving. Chicago native Pope Leo celebrated early in Italy before heading to Turkey for the holiday.
To recognize that we all have received so many gifts. First and foremost, the gift of life.
With about 3 million Black Catholics in the U.S., he's urging people to reflect on the gifts of life, faith, and unity. And the 2020 Georgia election interference case against President Trump is over. A judge dropped the charges, and Trump's team says the political persecution by former DA Fani Willis, who is Black, is done after she was removed over her relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. And Black Senator Cory Booker says Democrats need a tough conversation after failing his generation. He wants the party to refocus on economic issues that impact everyday people and reach marginalized voters on platforms like TikTok. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
More good times for the Lakers, more misery for the Clippers. The Lakers won their fifth straight game Tuesday night, dominating the Clippers 135-118. The Lakers are 13-4. They're tied with Denver for the second best record in the Western Conference. The Lakers' big three combined for 99 points. Luka Doncic had a game-high 43 plus 13 assists. Austin Reeves dropped 31. LeBron had 25 and 6 assists in 32 minutes. The 135 points was the most allowed by the Clippers this season. The Clippers are 5-13. They are 2-11 since November 3rd. The latest college football playoff rankings are out. The top 4 seeds in the 12-team field: Ohio State, Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Texas A&M, and Georgia. If these teams remain among the top 4, they will get a first-round bye in the playoffs. The final rankings and 12-team bracket will be finalized on December 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We want to speak directly to our listeners in Altadena and all across Southern California. Recently, we invited Southern California Edison to join a town hall so fire survivors could ask questions and get clear information about the Altadena Eaton fire and this so-called settlement fund. Weeks before the event, the law firm originally connected to the program withdrew, and we provided SCE updated materials confirming those changes. But despite that, SCE later stated publicly and privately that they were pulling out of the town hall because plaintiffs' attorneys were participating. That was not accurate, and SCE knew that it was not accurate. But when shown documentation that disproved their claim, SCE ignored it and declined to correct the record. At KBLA Talk 1580, trust is not an option. It is the foundation of our work and witness. It is the promise that we make to you. And so we will not move forward with any partnership that misrepresents the facts or undermines the credibility that we have built in love and service to this beloved community. Our commitment remains with the good people of Altadena. We will continue providing independent, verified information to support your recovery without interference from any outside entity, including Southern California Edison, so you don't get burned twice. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guests are our conversations with Atiba, and John Diggles is also joining us on our program today, along with our regular Friday host, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Gina Towns. To all, happy Thanksgiving and welcome back to the show.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Just before the break, I was asking Atiba a question about whether or not this is something that has to be advanced federally, another big government program, or is this something that can be coordinated state by state? Atiba.
I think both. I think in some ways it may have to come from the bottom up. I think that what you did and what you wrote helps to start, put a spark and hopefully a fire to a national conversation and a national dialogue around this. Something that I keep remembering, especially as of late, that President Clinton said in 2016 was that, do we want to be recognized as a country for the power of our example or the example of our power? And I think that I personally would like to see us be recognized for the power of our example. I think that all of these things and how we treat one another have incredible broad implications for our national security, because other people can look at us as an example. And so how we treat our aging community, our disability community, our young people, all of this from a federal standpoint is important. We've seen a lot of attacks on different things happening over the last few months, but I think that this is a dialogue and a conversation that has to happen. But to answer your question, I think it's something that we need to look at both from a federal and a state level.
I like Atiba's both and answer. I do like the idea, John, of the federal government establishing a very, very high floor for the dignity and care of people who find themselves in assisted living housing. They need doctors, they need nurses, they need caregivers, they need 24-hour staffs, they need activities directors in these communities, and they need people who, most importantly, care. I'd like to see federal coordination at the beginning so that the standards are very, very high for what our seniors and our loved ones have done for us. John Diggles, and then
I think that's critical, Jesse. And I also think that when what you just touched on is the dignity of care. One of the key things that comes through what caregivers, what unpaid caregivers and family caregivers are doing across the country is when they take care of a loved one, the dignity of care is very high. They know them. They know this person. They're going to make sure they're well taken care of. They're making incredible sacrifices. Caregivers from the family can do a lot to change the philosophy over all of our system about how people are cared for when they're in assisted living or other places. That dignity of care must be there. That high standard must be there. And I'll also say that our system can come a long way in treating sort of the specialized areas of care, whether that's specialized parts of illness or what has to be done inside to take care of people that have sort of specialized needs that they need to be addressed. That could also go a long way by setting that high standard.
I think the success, Gina, of this article is that every single one of our families knows someone, or we know someone who we had to provide care for. You mentioned your mother. Atiba mentioned his 106-year-old relative. Obviously, the country's heard about my 84-year-old father and his struggles. Gina, there is not a single household in America that this issue does not touch.
Absolutely. And, in this conversation, I'm just not willing to chuck the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the preamble. I'm just not willing to let go of those things. They belong to me too. They belong to you too. I think we did This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is Our Land. We did the history on that song a couple of weeks ago. I think when I look at the preamble and I see the declaration that we, the American people, make, and in particular, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evidences as designed to reduce them under absolute deposition, it is our right, it is our duty to throw off such a government and to provide new guards for their future and security. And so that's, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women, elderly and children, are created equal, and that we have to demand our own rights. We can't just be so busy thumbing through social media that we don't even teach this in school a whole lot. This is something that the founders, the framers of the Constitution, thought should be a part of education, as well as some other things. And I don't want to get that mixed up with some of what's going on in Oklahoma or some of these other school systems for the wrong purpose. But when you live in a nation and you want to have a nation that has character, you have to start from the beginning.
Atiba, just before we come forward, we have about 2 minutes. Gina raises a really important point, the same point that Martin Luther King Jr. raised, and that is the Declaration of Independence has a higher standard of care, but it's not the governing document. It has a higher standard of care than the Constitution of the United States itself. Dr. King was always perplexed between the standard that all men are created equal and the reality of slavery, the reality of segregation, the reality of sexism, the reality of misogynism, the reality of discrimination, when in fact the Constitution itself found itself ironically perpetuating the very institutions against the elderly, against people who need care. And we find ourselves always struggling with the aspiration of the Declaration of Independence, but the reality of a deficient Constitution.
Why do you always give me these loaded things?
It's because it's conversations.
We're starting Thanksgiving dinner before we eat.
And then you tell me, Atiba, you got 1 minute. So let me see if I can do that real quick.
I promise you, when we come forward, you can have as much time as you like, including your word of hope. So here you know what? Hold that thought, because I'm so sure that that's even fair. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward with our conversation with Atiba, he's going to have all the time in the world. Answer that loaded question. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gen Healthcare Pathways, and partnerships with over 200 organizations like Black Men in White Coats, Cedars-Sinai is educating and empowering future healthcare leaders right here in LA. With access to education, mentorships, and hands-on experiences, we can build a healthier Los Angeles together. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
With curbside pickup and delivery available, you'll always find what you love, only at Total Wine and More.
Drink responsibly, B21. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Thanksgiving Eve. It's our conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is John Diggles, and our creator, Gina Towns, is also joining us. Atiba, you got all the time in the world to address that humdinger that I sent to you before the break. Of course, Atiba's mic is muted, and we cannot hear him during the humdinger.
He was thinking loudly while
I
we were
was
on.
thinking loudly. I was like thinking like, how do I preface it with all this stuff? And you know, I like to watch Sports Center and get up and all that other stuff, guilty pleasures. And one of the things I love is how those conversations go. You know, it's because we're talking about here some very serious things. And so I'm thinking about one, just the symbolism of like what I'm wearing today. So I'm wearing a DC flag on an Adidas hat. I'm wearing a Midterms Matter shirt that says something else in the middle because it's that important. I'm sitting here thinking about Wes Moore and his interview on Sunday when he said, I have a 5-letter response for redistricting, which was IDGAF. Hopefully people will figure that out. But bottom line is that where I'm saying all these things is because all these things are wrapped in something. DC has incredible policy here that I think that the rest of the country can look at in terms of caregiving, in terms of how it treats its seniors. And that's right here in the nation's capital. I think that's very important to highlight. I think also a place like I live in Miami and in Florida. Florida does have great things there because there's so many people who, like me, I guess people will call me an early snowbirder who just never left, who went to Florida because I love the weather. But also to see how seniors are cared for and the laws and what have you that are there because there's such a high population. But in terms of as a country, as we were at the break, I was looking at Justice Ginsburg before she came on the court, represented men who were caregivers because there were laws that were in place that were discriminating against men in terms of tax deduction, in terms of Social Security. And so this issue that we are talking about, and we say the words, we the people, let us remember that we the people represented land-owning white men, European men in the beginning of this country's inception. And I've said this before in the show that I believe America represents and means an idea. And that idea as Americans, we are that promise of creating a more perfect union. And part of that is having these difficult discussions and conversations that should not be so difficult if we are really care about we the people, if we really care about how we're taking care of each other, how we're looking at how our families, because the bottom line is this, and I'll kind of put what I want to say in a nutshell because I know we're going to run out of time, is that really we need to refocus our attention in terms of how we treat and how we look at the family. Because I'm reminded that in 2004, I'm in Europe, in Spain, in France, and in Paris, and I'm talking to friends who are like, Atiba, your country is basically the Simpsons. And I'm like, what? You guys represent the Simpsons. And I'm like, no, we don't. You know, at that point, 21 years ago, I think we still had a little bit of class. But today in 2025, it doesn't seem to be so much when a governor has to answer a question and use letters that represent something that is because the issue is so important, or that I'm wearing a shirt that says midterms effing matter because I want to shock people's minds to know that all these things are important. So caregiving, how we treat our elderly, how we treat the disability community, these are all issues I have been working on for 20 some years. I used to work for the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. I had to break down things to be able to talk to lawmakers about why it was so important to preserve and protect these type of programs for the elderly, for the disabled community. I got my largest contract was cut because of the DOGE cuts earlier this year, where I was working specifically with state legislators and elected officials around disability. So these issues of caregiving are very personal to me on a family level, on a professional level, on an American level. And I don't believe that they become as important to everyone else, even though they probably are important without a national dialogue. So again, Jesse, I want to thank you for the op-ed that you wrote that is sparking this conversation.
I appreciate that, Atiba. John, some final thoughts on the caring economy and the caring society. And then we'll go back to Atiba for his final word of hope.
Well, Jesse, I'll actually set that up because I know you like to end on hope, and I think the hope that you've raised in your op-ed, in your conversation, and doing what you're doing on the show this week is that we're going to look more at how we support our caregivers. As that demand grows, we have to support them more. There's public policy paths to do it. You laid them out very well, and what you did is an extraordinary conversation for this week. My prayers for your father as well, and I wish you all a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving.
I appreciate that, John. My very best also to you and to your family during this holiday season, and certainly to the caregivers in Atiba's family, given that he has a relative who lives directly above him, which is already sacrificial, who's 106 years old. What a Thanksgiving that's going to be. A final word of hope for our conversation with Atiba from Atiba. You have about 3 minutes.
I'm about to say, wow, we have time, Gina. First off, my hope and my prayers to you, Jesse, because I don't want to get to the point and we run out of time. I want to make sure and want to emphasize my hope and my prayers to you and your family, to your siblings and to you and your mom, and, you know, in terms of with your dad, and that over this Thanksgiving dinner that you all have an opportunity to, and I know that you will appreciate each other, love one another, and embrace this Thanksgiving. My hope and prayer is the same thing for other families. Is that as we're sitting at our tables and we're eating that good food and full and watching the Dallas Cowboys beat up on the Kansas City Chiefs, that you know, that we're just enjoying, we're having fun. You know, and there's so much seriousness and things that are going on today that I hope that we are able to just take some time and just really just love and actually just take some time and have fun in the midst of all the seriousness and the things that are going on. These are my hopes. And my prayer is that we move through this holiday season, which I really always enjoy the holiday season, because I feel like it's a time when we treat each other a little bit more with a little bit more kindness, and that we look at each other and recognize and see each other better for our humanity, because what we have experienced over the last 10 months has not just been divisive. I think that all of us have play a part, and that all of us, in terms of as we're sitting around the table, that we look at and we think about the issues that are important to us, that we have some hard conversations, because we're family. Where else can you have these conversations if you can't do it with family, and do it in a loving way, and do it over food, and do it watching the Dallas Cowboys beat the Kansas City Chiefs? That's my hope, is that they win on Thursday.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to Conversations with Atiba. Our very special guest has been none other than healthcare expert John Diggles. When we come forward, Gina Towns and I will spend our time with Dr. Todd Yeary, where we're going to talk about the evolving definitions of Thanksgiving, just as we've talked in the past about the evolving definitions of July 4th. No Thanksgiving Day is the same. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Gina Towns and Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary.
An American Thanksgiving, Chicago native Pope Leo celebrated early in Italy before heading to Turkey for the holiday.
To recognize that we all have received so many gifts. First and foremost, the gift of life.
With about 3 million Black Catholics in the U.S., he's urging people to reflect on the gifts of life, faith, and unity. And the 2020 Georgia election interference case against President Trump is over. A judge dropped the charges, and Trump's team says the political persecution by former DA Fani Willis, who is Black, is done after she was removed over her relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. And Black Senator Cory Booker says Democrats need a tough conversation after failing his generation. He wants the party to refocus on economic issues that impact everyday people and reach marginalized voters on platforms like TikTok. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
More good times for the Lakers, more misery for the Clippers. The Lakers won their fifth straight game Tuesday night, dominating the Clippers 135-118. The Lakers are 13-4. They're tied with Denver for the second best record in the Western Conference. The Lakers' big three combined for 99 points. Luka Doncic had a game-high 43 plus 13 assists. Austin Reeves dropped 31. LeBron had 25 and 6 assists in 32 minutes. The 135 points was the most allowed by the Clippers this season. The Clippers are 5-13. They are 2-11 since November 3rd. The latest college football playoff rankings are out. The top 4 seeds in the 12-team field: Ohio State, Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Texas A&M, and Georgia. If these teams remain among the top 4, they will get a first-round bye in the playoffs. The final rankings and 12-team bracket will be finalized on December 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays, and of course, we're waiting for Dr. Todd Yeary to join us in just a moment. Something about the day before Thanksgiving, that kind of slows everybody down and puts us, I guess we pump the brakes a little bit on this holiday. But, we have to unpump the brakes for these caregivers because, no one ever talks about them. And I'm not even talking about the professionals. But even the idea that the Department of Education, Gina, just decided to designate that nursing is no longer a professional career.
We talked about that earlier in the week. It is so disturbing that someone can just reach in who doesn't have more than 3 words in their vocabulary and decide that nurses and other professions along this route are no longer professional careers, and the service that nurses provide, nurse practitioners, LPNs and RNs, have traditionally been filled by women. And so one has to wonder, is this, part of his rule for everybody to stay home and be pregnant and have babies and, get out of the workforce? And so not to be able to get funding to complete that education. But moreover, I don't know what the doctor does without the nurse. The nurse provides all of the research that is taking place, the file on the patient, so that the doctor can move. And we already have a shortage of doctors. So, this is all a lot to talk about. And then, you talk about the caregivers who, are at home with their family members. And we have in-home nursing. I don't know how all of this is going to play out, but that's why in the last hour, I thought it very important that we look at the preamble, because we need to hold on and grasp our rights. And I don't care whether you came into the country as a citizen in the 14th Amendment, got the right to vote in 15 or 19. What I am saying is that we have the opportunity to create a shining city on a hill for ourselves.
I before we bring on Dr. Yeri, who is here on Wealthy Wednesdays. Dr. Yeri, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're in a conversation with Gina Towns, our creator. I'm going to throw this out at Dr. Yeri. Dr. Yeri, welcome forward to the show.
Good to be with you. I hear Sister Gina is laying it down and is still going down while we're on the phone.
I appreciate that, Doc. Hey, listen, let me throw something out at you. I'm thinking in this moment, in light of the reaction to what we saw in USA Today, that we have to consider as a movement filing the Civil Rights Act of 2027, the right to high quality assisted living for our nation's elderly and infirmed. It includes Social Security, Medicare. High quality housing will be amongst the components of the act. It will include the elevation of the nursing and caregiver profession to professional status with a loan forgiveness program for the nursing profession. Largely, Dr. Yeri, in light of what I wrote yesterday in USA Today, but I don't claim to be a complete expert on the subject. There are other components of the bill. What do you think about the idea, Doc?
Well, it's an important effort. If we do not nationalize the priorities of equity and equality, we leave ourselves subject to this whole new push, this renewed push for states' rights. If we just go back to how the Continental Congress was convened, in order to participate in the framing of the Constitution, you had to go back and establish a state constitution first. And so a lot of what we are looking to include in the national document is already codified in many ways in some state documents. And so we should just build on that so that we don't get caught in this this debate over originalism in reading the Constitution and detaching then the founding document of the nation from the state constitutions that predates the framing of the U.S. Constitution. We've got to do it. Otherwise, we keep having this bifurcated argument about which careers are professional, which rights are enshrined. Do we have a right to a high quality education? It's in some state constitutions. It's not in the United States Constitution. Do we have a right to vote? Enshrined in some state constitutions, not in the U.S. Constitution. And so we have to have these conversations, and there has to be a renewed push so that we don't have kind of selective participation depending on where you live, which is kind of the reality of where we are right now.
Todd, when I look at Jesse Jackson and Gina at the example that his life is setting and this conversation that is really being driven by his life and the sacrifice that he's made for our nation, for our community, for our world, it seems to me, Dr. Yeri and Gina, that the model that we have is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So many others, from Americans with Disability, from the LGBTQIA community, have all modeled critical pieces of legislation off of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It seems to me that by 2027 and even in 2026 in the midterms, given the number of people, 63 million people who are providing care for loved ones across this country and are not being compensated, are often not even being thanked, who represent somewhere between $500 billion a year conservatively and $600 billion that it's taken essentially out of the economy, or you could look at it another way. It keeps the national healthcare system from being overburdened by 63 million people who need care as we speak. It seems to me that we have a framework for a Civil Rights Act in 2027 that we can actually make an issue in 2026. Gina, Dr. Yuri?
Absolutely. We have to go to break, but I have a clip that I want to do when we come back, because you all know I love history. And so when we come back from this break, when we come forward from this break, Jesse, can you take us out?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We want to speak directly to our listeners in Altadena and all across Southern California. Recently, we invited Southern California Edison to join a town hall so fire survivors could ask questions and get clear information about the Altadena Eaton fire and this so-called settlement fund. Weeks before the event, the law firm originally connected to the program withdrew, and we provided SCE updated materials confirming those changes. But despite that, SCE later stated publicly and privately that they were pulling out of the town hall because plaintiffs' attorneys were participating. That was not accurate, and SCE knew that it was not accurate. But when shown documentation that disproved their claim, SCE ignored it and declined to correct the record. At KBLA Talk 1580, trust is not an option. It is the foundation of our work and witness. It is the promise that we make to you. And so we will not move forward with any partnership that misrepresents the facts or undermines the credibility that we have built in love and service to this beloved community. Our commitment remains with the good people of Altadena. We will continue providing independent, verified information to support your recovery without interference from any outside entity, including Southern California Edison, so you don't get burned twice. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Kohl's Black Friday deals are here. Grab your coffee and put on your sneakers because it's go time. Through Saturday, save up to 50% on everything from toys to beauty faves, winter styles, and more. Plus, earn $15 Kohl's Cash for every $50 spent. Yep, that's extra Kohl's Cash. So run, don't walk. Just hold on tight to that coffee. Select styles, some exclusions apply. Coupons and Kohl's Cash do not apply to Sephora. Offers end November 29th. See store or kohls.com for details.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on this Thanksgiving Eve. Of course, we will not be live on the show tomorrow, but we certainly want to thank you for your support of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I pray that everyone within the sound of my voice, please, please, please put KBLA Talk 1580 on your Thanksgiving table and put it under your Christmas tree. We always could use the support for the free voices, the unadulterated voices that Tavis Smiley and that KBLA represents, not only in Los Angeles, but across our country. And some of you may not know that we are global. I get calls from people from London, from Johannesburg, South Africa. And just because you have an AM dial, don't discount the fact that millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, can listen to our program by downloading the KBLA app. And that's what they're doing all over the world. And so quickly, KBLA is emerging as a center point for authoritative truth-telling that matters to our national movements and to our global positioning in light of everything that we're looking at. Our very special guest in this hour on Wealthy Wednesdays is none other than Dr. S. Todd Eury. Dr. Eury, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and Gina Towns, our creator. Welcome forward, team.
Hi, Jesse.
I'm about to turn this over to Gina because she has some thoughts about Thanksgiving and some other thoughts that we do need to cover in this hour. But I do want to say that in the time that we were on the break, Todd, I came up with this title for a piece of legislation: the Civil Rights Act of 2027, the Assisted Care Living of Equal High Quality, and the Caregivers Protection and Enabling Act. Give it some thought. I don't want to give it a bunch of alphabets, but it just makes sense. The Civil Rights Act of 2027, the Assisted Care Living of Equal High Quality, meaning the government has to build a massive amount of housing of equal high quality for assisted living, and the Caregiver Protection and Enabling Act. Gina, I'm pitching it to you now to pivot us to Thanksgiving. Absolutely. And what the holiday represents and some of the thoughts that you've shared that are nothing short of brilliant.
All right, well, let's go to a clip and then we can have some discussion.
On October 3rd, 1863, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln proclaims a Thanksgiving holiday to be celebrated on Thursday, November 26th. The move comes from a desire to express gratitude for the crucial Union victory at Gettysburg a few months earlier. Lincoln's announcement harkened back to George Washington, who had called for an official day of public thanksgiving and prayer in his first year as U.S. President in 1789. Lincoln further declared that the last Thursday of every November would thereafter be considered a national day of Thanksgiving. This did not, however, make Thanksgiving an official federal holiday, as it had to be proclaimed each year by successive presidents. Lincoln's decision was greatly influenced by Sarah Josepha Hale, a prominent figure known for writing the children's poem Mary Had a Little Lamb, and editing the popular women's magazine Godey's Ladies' Book. For decades, Hale had written articles and editorials advocating a fixed national Thanksgiving holiday, which was already celebrated in parts of the nation, especially in the Northeast. After Gettysburg, Hale wrote to both President Lincoln and Secretary of State William Seward, urging them to declare a national Thanksgiving celebration. Within a week of receiving her letters, Lincoln made his Thanksgiving Declaration. The annual presidential Thanksgiving proclamation continued for more than 70 years. Then, President Franklin D. Roosevelt made a controversial move during the Great Depression in 1939. The last Thursday of November that year was the 30th, which was the 5th Thursday of the month. FDR felt that moving Thanksgiving to the 23rd, the 4th Thursday, could boost the economy by providing an extra week of shopping between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, he proclaimed the 23rd rather than the 30th as the Thanksgiving holiday. This sowed both confusion and backlash, with some U.S. states insisting on celebrating on the traditional last Thursday instead. Critics dubbed the president's change of date as Franksgiving. In 1940 and 41, FDR leaned into the controversy by moving the holiday to the 3rd Thursday, as there were only 4 Thursdays in November during those years. To permanently end the confusion, In December 1941, Congress stepped in and officially established the fourth Thursday in November as the federal Thanksgiving holiday. Somewhere, Sarah Josepha Hale must have been smiling.
You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest on Wealthy Wednesdays is none other than Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, I know that Gene is going to be conducting most of the segment, but I wanted to share with you that every Thanksgiving is different. Obviously, the Thanksgiving that George Washington proclaimed, slavery was legal. He owned slaves, and it certainly wasn't much for, I can't imagine that slave holders during that period, when they sat around their Thanksgiving table, they thank God for the labor and for the Negroes out back. It just seems to me they might have been left out of their prayers. But Thanksgiving in 1863, after the proclamation in October, and just before the after or before the Emancipation Proclamation, it's quite a different Thanksgiving because Gettysburg, the Gettysburg dead have not been buried yet. Abraham Lincoln in November of that year, goes back to Gettysburg with the dead still unburied, delivers the Gettysburg Address, and he talks about a new birth of freedom, a new nation, which was very different than the one that was conceived on July 4th, 1776, and when the Constitution was written. Dr. Yeary.
Well, there is a lot of history to unpack in this notion of giving thanks. From the government's perspective, it has always been, to some degree, a response to some crisis. The crisis of Lincoln's day was whether or not he would be able to mend the rift that led to the secession of Southern states without, obviously, having to compromise on the issue of human bondage. That was not the case. And because Lincoln found himself in the North with the Northern Army, the Union Army, having human capital issues, they needed some soldiers who knew how to fight. He had to figure out how to navigate that. And so he was giving thanks because he knew that in the fields he had some soldiers that would save his behind. So I guess he had a lot to give thanks for. It ended up working in a way that he was almost obligated to make sure that the 13th, 14th amendments were in this mix, particularly the 13th Amendment, as part of the bringing the Southern states back into being. But when you talk about this new civil rights movement, we have to remember that the Civil Rights Acts, upon which you're proposing a new one, a next one, have been necessary because the Constitution in its original framework proved to be inadequate to make room. And so, to Gina's point, giving thanks looks a little different depending on where you sit in relationship to your status in the nation. If you were property, you didn't give thanks. As a matter of fact, you may actually look for a little assistance from the divine to change your predicament. Even when the argument over when you do it, moving Thanksgiving Day up a week so that you could shop more. There's now this capitalistic notion where profit making is part of the giving thanks formula. And so we who have different ideas of what giving thanks means approach it from a different perspective. And so when we look at Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving Day, we who live on the margins trying to find a place for ourselves in the room at a different kind of Thanksgiving table, we've got a lot to be thankful for, but we've got a lot of work to do.
Doc, I appreciate that. Gina, when I think in this moment about Thanksgiving, and I think about the addition of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and the 15 presidents who came before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, there wasn't much for African Americans, Native Americans, or for that matter, women to be thankful for. It's the amendments that move us from states' rights to the right not to be in slavery, or involuntary servitude. So we moved to human rights, and then every Thanksgiving after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment is a different Thanksgiving. When I think about Thanksgivings after the right to vote for women, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, all Thanksgivings before that were different than the one where they had power, the right to vote. And so when I think about the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the public accommodations legislation, Gina, before those acts, there was less to be thankful for. But after that legislation, we walked into a very different America. And just listening to Dr. Uri and your commentary a few minutes ago, I'm thinking about changing the name of the Civil Rights Act of 2027 right now. How about the Civil Rights Act of 2027, the Assisted Care Living and Caregiver Protection and Enabling and Compensation Act?
You're going to have to put some letters on that.
Well, what I did add to it was compensation. So if the C is added to it, please note that the C is for compensation.
And not just commission.
That's a very different world to walk in, and that's different Thanksgivings for caregivers, isn't it, Gina?
Absolutely. And the thing you talked about is the amendment process. The amendment process is a gift. And so we can complain about the beginning, white, male, land owning, framers of the Constitution. We can complain about that, and it is true. But then we have to look at the gift of the amendment, which helps us to move forward theologically and chronologically in our country. And that's why I'm saying that it's important for us to fight. You don't throw a gift back and in someone's face. And so we are just at a point in time in our history. And in our next segment, it's kind of a lengthy clip. We may have to just watch the clip when we come forward and then save our discussion for the last segment. But from the history that we watched a little while ago, that was, the pioneer stage for America in this whole idea of freedom and Thanksgiving. I'm going to go back just a little bit further and look at our side of the story, because I also think that for us as a people, when we consider slavery, I just always see us being grateful for whatever we have. And this is something that I have seen in the generations who are passing before us, always grateful. I might not have much, but I keep it clean, living just enough for the city. These are songs in the key of our lives when we think about Thanksgiving in this country. So I look forward to where we're going to go and what we're going to see when we come back, when we come forward from this break.
Well, we are not coming forward from this break for 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. So we'll let Dr. Yuri go and comment on any of that, because we are around our Thanksgiving table here on KBLA, on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and it is Wealthy Wednesday. We are stopping that biscuit in the fat meat from Friday as well. Ty, we're taking in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So could you provoke some thoughts for us before we take this break?
Well,
she loves you up, Ty.
I want to tell you look like Diamond in the Back sunroof top.
Yeah, I like how you did that. That's why you the EP. That's why you do what you do. Listen, here's the thing. Contextually, for our people, and Reverend Jackson often raises it, that our Thanksgiving Day is watch night. When the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, it did not take effect until January 1 the next year. And so watching the calendar change is why we do watch night, watching the year come in at midnight, because then we give thanks about a change in our condition, at least legally. And so perspective does matter. And to your point, we are grateful for where we are, but we also have to be honest that we're not where we ought to be. And so that's the fight that we have to maintain, even as we are giving thanks. Thank God for the strength to keep on struggling until you get the justice that you demand.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest, Reverend Dr. Todd Uri, on Wealthy Wednesdays when we come forward. Happy Thanksgiving.
The latest playoff rankings are out. The top 4 seeds in the 12th field: Ohio State, Patrick Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Texas A&M, and Georgia. If these teams remain among the top 4, they will get a first-round bye in the playoffs. The final rankings and 12-team bracket will be finalized on December 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Whoa,
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We want to speak directly to our listeners in Altadena and all across Southern California. Recently, we invited Southern California Edison to join a town hall so fire survivors could ask questions and get clear information about the Altadena Eaton fire and this so-called settlement fund. Weeks before the event, the law firm originally connected to the program withdrew, and we provided SCE updated materials confirming those changes. But despite that, SCE later stated publicly and privately that they were pulling out of the town hall because plaintiffs' attorneys were participating. That was not accurate, and SCE knew that it was not accurate. But when shown documentation that disproved their claim, SCE ignored it and declined to correct the record. At KBLA Talk 1580, trust is not an option. It is the foundation of our work and witness. It is the promise that we make to you. And so we will not move forward with any partnership that misrepresents the facts or undermines the credibility that we have built in love and service to this beloved community. Our commitment remains with the good people of Altadena. We will continue providing independent, verified information to support your recovery without interference from any outside entity, including Southern California Edison, so you don't get burned twice. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Joe Buck and John.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Happy Thanksgiving. I got a clip for you right now.
There's a lot about the first Thanksgiving that's a myth. For one, they were eating corn porridge and eels, not turkey and pumpkin pie. It is true, however, that Wampanoag chief Massasoit managed to foster peace between the Pilgrims and his people. But that peace wouldn't last. Half a century later, his son, known as King Philip, united indigenous tribes in an all-out war on the colonists of New England. What would follow was not just the deadliest conflict of the colonial period, but a defining moment in a centuries-long battle between the United States and indigenous people. I'm Joel Cook, and this is Rogue History. Rebels and Revolutionaries. So who violated the spirit of the original Thanksgiving Treaty first? I'll give you one guess. It's a hard one, I know. The second generation of English colonists was no longer content to practice their religion in privacy or trade for survival. Their population was absolutely exploding. They wanted land, lots of it, and they were developing an entire legal framework to legitimize straight up taking it. Until this point, Chief Massasoit had a very diplomatic relationship with the colonists. But as the decades wore on, the English continuously tested the boundaries of treaties, eventually breaking them outright. This is where Chief Massasoit's son, King Philip, comes into the picture. His Wampanoag name was Metacom, but his father encouraged two of his sons to adopt English names as a sign of respect for English customs. Thus he became Philip. Massasoit died in 1661, when Metacom was about 23 years old. His older son, Wamsutta, known to the English as Alexander, became chief of the Wampanoag. But here's where things get really sketchy. After being summoned to Plymouth, Alexander died mysteriously. Many Wampanoag suspected poisoning. Previously harmonious relations were growing chillier by the day. When Philip became chief after his brother died, he initially continued his father's diplomatic approach, and the colonists kept pushing his buttons. By the 1670s, colonist livestock were destroying Wampanoag crops, they were claiming land through dubious purchases, and Plymouth courts were asserting jurisdiction over indigenous affairs. Basically, they were acting like they owned the place. In 1667, Plymouth established yet another settlement on indigenous land. Rather than fight, Philip negotiated and accepted payment for the land, but he was quietly reaching a breaking point. He used the money from the sale to buy weapons, preparing for what might come. As if things weren't already tense enough, in 1675, a colonial court condemned 3 Wampanoag men to death and executed them. Their alleged crime? Murdering an indigenous Christian convert who had been spying on King Philip for the colonists. This incident highlighted a growing fracture at the time. Some indigenous were converting to Christianity and spending a lot of time around the colonists, and they weren't always loyal to their original communities. Remember that. It'll be important later. For the Wampanoag, the execution of 3 of their own was the final straw. The Wampanoag had their own law and order systems, their own way of punishing transgressions. The colonists really thought they could just kidnap their people and put them to death with no consequences? Philip hit his limit. He believed that coexistence was no longer possible. The total subjugation of indigenous people was inevitable unless they fought back. Of course, this war was preventable. Even the English Parliament warned the colonists that they wouldn't support a war, and cautioning them to practice restraint just seemed like an unnecessary hassle. But in an early sign of things to come, the colonists chose to operate, shall we say, independently of Great Britain. They felt they could handle this little rebellion on their own. How hard could it be? Philip understood the importance of building alliances across tribal lines, something that had never been done at this scale against colonial aggressors. His coalition eventually brought together the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, Podunk, Narragansett, Nashaway, and Wabanaki tribes, forging an alliance that stretched across all of New England. In June of 1675, Wampanoag warriors attacked their first settlement, marking the official start of what would become known as King Philip's War. By winter, the colonists lived in genuine terror. Philip's forces had attacked over a dozen colonial settlements across New England. In March 1676, they burned Providence, Rhode Island, to the ground. What scared the colonists most was the military sophistication of Philip's forces. Indigenous warriors used guerrilla tactics that the English, trained in European-style warfare, were completely unprepared for. Indigenous warriors were superior marksmen who had grown up hunting with precision weapons like bows and arrows, spears, tomahawks, and war clubs. English militia training focused on firing large volleys indiscriminately, not hitting precise targets. So while the colonists were the ones who brought guns to the New World, King Philip's forces were already way better at using them. Indigenous forces would appear, strike, then vanish across rivers after destroying bridges behind them, leaving the colonists stranded while the indigenous taunted them from the far shore. As one indigenous warrior mocked the English, "They always keep in a heap together, so it is as easy to hit them as to hit a house." The Battle of Bloody Brook perfectly demonstrated both indigenous tactical brilliance and English overconfidence. As the story goes, during the battle, a bunch of colonists were traipsing through the forest when they stopped, set down their weapons, and started picking grapes. I literally cannot make this up. They were ambushed and slaughtered by about 700 indigenous warriors lying in wait. King Philip's War was the deadliest conflict of the colonial period in terms of the percent of populations that were killed. Casualty rates of this magnitude wouldn't be seen again until the American Civil War. And for a good chunk of it, the colonists were suffering most of the casualties. If they wanted to stay alive and stay in New England, the colonists needed to get it together. No more missing every shot, no more huddling together out in the open, and no more stopping for sweet treats. And if Philip was going to coordinate between tribes, they needed to coordinate between colonies too. The winter of 1675 marked the turning point. English forces from Massachusetts and Connecticut finally got on the same page and attacked an indigenous fort. The fighters were elsewhere, and the colonists killed a bunch of women, children, elderly, and wounded people. But what was clearly an atrocity even by the standards of the day gave the English momentum to keep fighting. They also evolved. Remember the indigenous Christian converts from earlier? Well, the English did, and they asked for their help. colonial commanders began fielding mixed units that combined colonial soldiers with indigenous allies who understood the terrain and guerrilla tactics. The results were dramatic. As one Puritan minister put it, where Indians are employed, there hath been the greatest success, if not the only success. By summer 1676, Philip's forces were exhausted and scattered. Then came personal tragedy. Philip's uncle was killed, and his wife and their young son captured and sold into slavery. Philip's own bravery and resolve had been the backbone of this struggle. The loss was devastating not just for him, but for the cause. A mixed colonial army tracked Philip to Mount Hope, his ancestral stronghold, the hill from which his father Massasoit had reigned when he...
Gina, 100 years before the Declaration of Independence. So much for the Indians welcoming the Pilgrims and the Pilgrims welcoming the Indians. I know we're going to talk about it when we come forward, but wow.
Yeah. I mean, that is the part that everybody tends to skip over.
I mean, they romanticize it. They make it seem like, oh, we welcome the... Man, they were slaughtering people. Wow. Well, of course we know that. Yeah. But it's okay to stop and position ourselves and to recognize it wasn't just of us welcoming them and them welcoming us, and we all sat down and got along. How did they go from all of these tribes to no tribes? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Happy Thanksgiving, and that's in order. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Todd Yeary.
It's a scam. And will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help. It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready? Drop it! Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. You know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome aboard to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is our final segment before Thanksgiving. I certainly want to take this opportunity on behalf of all of us at the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, from our creator all the way down to every single contributor. We want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, especially the caregivers who are providing so much care for so many millions of Americans at this hour. Gina, the video that you just played moments ago was absolutely fascinating. And I know Dr. Yeary is back with us there is a history and there is a context to Thanksgiving that is violent and it is brutal, even before the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. So much for the romantic notion of they welcomed us, we welcomed them, they helped us survive a winter. Hell no. I mean, they lit those people up. They brought guns to these shores and then declared that they had eventually a Second Amendment right to do what they want with them. How about that, Gina?
There was a little bit more to that clip, but two things that I'm going to ask Reverend Yuri to talk about. The first thing was that they took them into slavery. The colonists, when they went to get King Philip, then took the indigenous people, the American Indian, into slavery. But slavery was already going on at that particular point. The second point I want you to talk about with us and school us on, Todd, is the whole notion that they talked about how the colonists brought Christianity. And I don't know if this is part of, the doctrine of discovery or what have you, but once the indigenous people, or if one was converted to Christianity, you saw them turn on their people and war against them or become scouts for the colonists. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll sum it on up so we can all be grateful about where we are.
That's how we rolling today. I
That's how we roll. You are right. Todd, you got to lead. You got one hand on the steering wheel.
You got spokes on your wheels. You got a phone in your back window with a dial-up.
I thought we'd be singing "On the Road Again," just something like that.
No,
all right, so let's start with the last part first, right? The conversion of indigenous thinking that turns into self-loathing. That the alliances that they talk about in the clip that were relied upon to change the fortunes of the colonists was really to get the indigenous converts to see something negative about their own reality. And the way that they did it, if we look at how enslavement took place, how colonization took place, the first thing that would be subdued in subjugating a people would be two primary systems that are interrelated. One is education. The other is their spiritual framework, what we would call religion. And so if you could hold those two things captive, one, how do I learn about who I am? And more importantly, how do I understand who I am within the order of the cosmos? We call that a worldview or cosmology. Then I can manipulate you against your own self-interest under the guise of, I've got something better for you if you just partner with me. We've seen this replicated time and time and time again. If you convert someone who's held in bondage, are you obligated to liberate them? Right? Do you have to set them free? Can you save their soul and still hold their body as property? That's the question that they wrestled with. That's why we had splits in denominationalism, in religious form. The Southern Baptist Convention emerges, the split in the Presbyterian Church and the Methodist structures.
Wow.
We see that. And so this whole issue of coming in this sense of conquest, because remember, the folks who were exploring, discovering, were not discovering on their own right. They were coming with the interest of some monarchy behind them. And to conquer and bring back territory and subjects would be the thing that would change their status back at home. And so they send the criminal, they send the lowlife, they send those who have no status to come do the bidding and then as was said by the narrator, they create these laws that say, guess what? We get to hold your stuff, including you, for our ends because we have a divine right in our version of Christianity, which, by the way, is not a Western religion. The oldest Christian expression is of the Ethiopian Coptic Church, which last time I checked, Ethiopia is still on the continent.
Gina?
Well, he just preached a whole mini sermon right there. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to go back and go pre-Lincoln, even pre Constitution, if you will, is because that's one of the reasons why there is a push and a move to get rid of history. And until we really take history and know history, and that's not just our history. If we're going to live in the country, then we all have to be privy to this history, and we have to know it. We have to appreciate it for what it is so that we can become better. I believe there can be a tide of great will. And this Thanksgiving, because we are where we are, because Jesse has talked about a caring economy, because people do see maybe things that they took for granted over the past decade in jeopardy. We think about our children. We think about the elderly, and we think about those who cannot fend for themselves, those who have been to war and fought for this country and come back and have nothing for Thanksgiving dinner. And we remember them all. So Todd, thank you for that history lesson because it really is important.
Dr. Uri, we have a lot to be thankful for in spite of it all. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have about 3 minutes for a word of hope.
Well, here's maybe a title for the legislation that you're proposing. And maybe it's Caring for the Caregivers Act. And it allows then for an expansive definition of who are the caregivers. Nurses, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, those who do practical nursing, the things that we don't want to do that work in assisted living and nursing homes and the like, but also educators. We have a great hostility toward the caregiving of learning. How do you build a sense of identity and moral framing if we don't take care of those in the classroom settings, as we see this recent attack that everybody except, oddly enough, theologians are not professional anymore. I want to see where he's going with that.
I heard that. I saw that really carefully. I watched that. Right.
Yeah. I need to see what schools they get to attend for full consideration. But here's the thing that we should remember about Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving calls us to look in two directions because we understand time to be cyclical, not linear. And so we look back to understand, what do these stones mean? The caregiving of education. Someone's got to tell the story and tell the truth about the story. But then also to look forward, to make sure that we don't become stymied and stagnant in our current condition and believe that somehow or other this is all there is to the expectation for justice and opportunity for God's people writ large, regardless of perspective or frame or hue or language. And so I would lift up on this eve of Thanksgiving that the psalmist writings, which help us to deal with the orientation of life, as the late Walter Brueggemann would say, the disorientation and then the reorientation of life, that life happens. But in Psalm 100, at about verse 4, there's an invitation that we're to enter God's gates with thanksgiving and to enter God's courts with praise, that we're to be thankful to God and to bless God's name, because here it is, God is good. And I would just say, remember that through it all, God is still good. God's mercy is everlasting, and God's truth endures to
I
all
want to
generations.
I want to thank everybody for praying for my father. We here at KBLA and on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show are praying for you and praying for your families. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More next week.